Interstellar is bullshit, and in this video I'm gonna give 3 reasons why I think so, including one that I think is gonna make a lot of people upset, but, you know, whatever. And to prove this, we're gonna bake a cake. This cake, to be exact. But first, we need our pan, or in the case of the movie, the first act, which I will admit is unbelievable. It's like watching a brilliant short film. You get great looks at the near dystopian future where food is slowly becoming more and more scarce. We see glimpses of Cooper's relationship with his daughter Murph, son Timothy Chalamet, and his father. If there's one thing any great first act does, it's set up interesting things to pay off later. Like this video, for example, so watch to the end, please. There's one way you can really gauge if a first act is working or not, and that is by the questions it's setting up to pay off later. So if we look at the first act, what are some questions you would have that you would want paid off later? For me, I can think of 3 major ones. How will the relationship between Cooper and his family grow? Will they be able to save the food and the planet? How has the world changed thanks to this crisis? And is this teacher single? I guess that's 4. In order for this film to be truly satisfying, it's going to want to pay off the majority of the questions the audiences have from this first act. So let's look at some of the answers we get. How will the relationship between Cooper and his family grow? The answer is, it doesn't. Haha, we love that. We love when Cooper sees his family on his TV and that's it. How has the world changed thanks to this crisis? The moon landing is fake and plants die. That's it. That's all we learn, and that's just all in the first act. So great, we learn nothing. We learn nothing throughout the whole movie. Awesome.
Now, we don't need more engineers.
You sure about that?
We didn't run out of television screens and planes. We ran out of food.
And finally, will they be able to save the food and the planet? So that brings us to the story, or in the case of this cake, our water. Oh shit. Now we need to carefully measure out 1 cup of water for this cake. Very difficult stuff, but while we do that, let's talk about what I think could have really improved this story. Now this is easier said than done, but a massive improvement would be, instead of following Cooper into the unknowns of space, we stay on Earth with Murph. Cooper can still abandon her, he can still leave data for her to find, and she can still send him the messages she does, if that's how you want to write it. More importantly, this allows us to explore Murph's character, and the love and worship she has for her father, Cooper. We can see her moving past her disappointment of her father leaving, overcoming it, and growing from that trauma. This moment early on when Cooper has to visit with her teacher could have been so different and so great for her character.
Murph is a great kid. She's really bright, but she's been having a little trouble lately. She brought this in to show the other students the section on the lunar landings.
Instead of saying she had an incident in class, show it! Am I crazy, or is this not the first rule of filmmaking? In this instance, we get a better sense of who she is and what she stands for if we see with our eyeballs why she freaked out, who she flipped out at, and the response of the people around her. Explore her worldview, and in turn, we can explore her love for her father. She clearly looks up to him and his wisdom, but we could dig into that more. We could also dig into her attempting to replace her father figure with Alfred, the wheelchair butler, and why Jessica Chastain isn't dating me yet. There's next door to 0 development in the potential father-daughter aspect between Alfred and Murph, not to mention the utter lack of anything interesting with Casey Affleck or his family. Casey Affleck sucks in this and is completely wasted being a grumbly farmer who does nothing. Oh, my kid has a cough from, but I don't want to move him because I'm an asshole. These questions are far more interesting to explore than, hey, what if my dad left me binary code on a watch I threw on the floor?
No idea. Oh! Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
All the characters are so painfully one note, it's honestly shocking the film is so long considering how little is going on. Instead of focusing on the heart of the story, Murph, and her relationship with her father, we get 2 different narratives that loosely try to do that, but end up just being narrative cul-de-sacs over and over and over again. Murph has just a little tiny bit of screen time trying to solve the Earth crisis, while Cooper tries desperately to find a habitable planet and get back to her. The space stuff is the stuff with the most flair. It's visual, it's sensory, and it's exciting. It's also shockingly dull and repetitive at times. The absolute most boring thing I can imagine is listening to people talking about their love life when I didn't ask.
No.
Outside of that, the group discusses logistics of a new plan, executing the plan failing, and discussing another new plan. They are endlessly talking about love, gravity, black holes, flying into a black hole, and trying to overcome these things. It's boring and repetitive and stretched out beyond belief, which is probably why Chris Nolan decided to be cutting between these 2 stories to try and limit your exposure to these boring, terrible, robotic characters. And I don't mean TARS.
Dr. Brand and Edmonds. They close?
I wouldn't know.
She's in love with Wolf Edmonds. Is that true?
Yes. I'm counting every minute, same as you, Cooper.
We can care deeply, selflessly, about those we know, but that empathy rarely extends beyond our line of sight.
Do you see your children? It's okay. They're right there with you.
I'm gonna find a way to tell Murph, just like I found this moment.
How, Cooper?
The love tars love.
I wish the film decided to stick to one of these two narratives, but at the end of the day, the characters are what truly suffers from this lack of focus. And that brings us to our second ingredient, oil. Where's my oil? Oil, or extra virgin olive oil.
Mom lets me play in here. I don't touch your stuff.
Sticking with Murph would have been great. Maybe a bit too art house for some, but we also could have followed Cooper's story more closely too. However, this would require not showing Murph's perspective at all. In order to dial up the stakes of their mission and help the audience understand Cooper as a person, we need to not leave his side. In this case, not seeing would actually help us. Imagine if we weren't shown Murph's perspective. We would learn information through Cooper in a much more compelling way. If we never saw Murph, then suddenly she shows up to tell Cooper that Batman's butler left everyone on Earth to die, that would have been a crazy twist!
You left us here. To suffocate. To starve.
It also would have added to the stakes of the mission, but as is, we learned the information too early to be effective. If we learned it with Cooper instead of before him, it would have had the punch it needed.
No way to help us.
But Plan A, all this, all these people, the equation. You left us here. To suffocate. To starve.
It's like someone telling you their secret and then having another person come and tell you that exact same secret that they just told you. Oh, I already know this secret. I've already been told it. Like, it's not that fun anymore. With this runtime, we definitely should have further understood the characters Cooper is with as well. They are more or less nameless scientists. Anne Hathaway is a woman who loves a guy we never meet. There's a black guy who hangs around like a ghost, drifting between scenes, hardly doing anything or saying anything. And finally, there's a guy who drowns. And now we have our final ingredient to this smorgasbord of a movie, the ending, or in this case, the eggs. The most important thing, and the one thing that if we don't have, this is simply not gonna work.
They can't find a specific place in time. They can't communicate.
Huh?
That's why I'm here.
Huh?
I'm gonna find a way to tell Murph, just like I found this moment.
This ending is utterly disastrous for the movie. The eggs here are like completely rotten. It's terrible, and it's the only thing that is paid off from the first act.
Love tars love.
Unfortunately for this script and the way it's written and structured, there's almost no creative room to breathe here. There's absolutely no chance that nobody went into a black hole at the end. After talking about it so endlessly, I wanted to chop my ears off. So what do you do inside a black hole? Theoretically, you have room to work here, but once again, Nolan crams his surprisingly full ass into a narrow hole. What we get is a frankly stupid and utterly underwhelming way of tying this ending to the beginning. He can float around this gigantic time machine, which is specifically built for moments in time in a child's bookshelf. A place registered sex offenders would love to get to, I'm sure. But instead of using this for evil, he tries to use code to tell his older self to stay. No! And then desperately codes whatever miraculously onto an old watch. Not only does this make no sense, but you're effectively told to take your pill and forget about it. Because there's hardly any explanation for anything, and the ones that we do get are stupid.
We're here to communicate with a three-dimensional world. We're the bridge.
Huh?
There's not even anything that cool going on outside of a couple neat visuals.
That's pretty neat.
He's putting code onto a watch. Let the audience imagine what happened to the black hole. That would have given us room to bring our own thoughts to it. How about we leave him the moment he slips into the black hole and his ship starts to explode? If we follow Murph from here on, then we can see her discovery of the watch, and we can watch her connect the dots to her ghost being her dad without having to blatantly show the audience the confusing nonsense we get gagged with.
Gravity can cross the dimensions, including time. apparently.
I'm much more likely to accept something if you give me far less information, but instead we have this gift-wrapped package of everything that happened in this black hole, and it still makes no sense. And the problems even deepen by the stupid and obnoxious word that is repeated through the whole film. Love.
Love, Tars, love.
This is what ultimately ties everything together, love and gravity. And that is our oven. And that is going to bring our cake together, the oven and the theme of love. Or it should. But in the case of Chris Nolan's oven, I think it was set far too low, and the cake is still mush. The theme of love being powerful enough to transcend time and space is shoved down the audience's throat until your head may as well explode. But what does this theme even amount to? Cooper has love for Murph, so he gets her something from inside of a black hole? I don't even know what! Anne Hathaway goes to a planet for her lover, but he's dead, so that's a cool storyline. Yes, Cooper's love for Murph saves Earth through the power of gravity and a black hole. But what does that even mean? There's no answer to the question, why should I care? Why should I care about the love these people are feeling towards other people we either don't know that well or have literally never met? It's hard to feel satisfied at the end of this when literally nothing satisfying happens. It's a case of it had its cake and it wanted to eat it too. But turns out that cake was half-baked. As you can see, I've already enjoyed this cake. It's the complete opposite of the movie though. There's absolutely no visual flair, I forgot the frosting, but it's perfectly cooked. And honestly, not that bad.